Hi, welcome to the Julie Rowe Show. Today is Friday, November 15th, 2019. Hello, Eric Smith.
Hello, Julie Rowe.
So today, we're going to talk a little bit more about perfect love, or what we call Christ-like love.
That's good.
So
it is a topic, really, we can't spend enough time on, truly. And Julie, as I was thinking about this topic, I don't have a lot to contribute. I'll just probably ask questions. But we mentioned last time on our announcement podcast that we have some books and things coming out. As I've been compiling my essays for a published book format, I was I was looking at it as a whole and thinking, what is the overall message of these essays? It's interesting, and it's the same thing with our podcasts, right? If you look back, we never had, at least I never had, the big message in mind at the beginning. I mean, we knew we wanted to warn and get truth out there, but it was always episode by episode, thought by thought. Same with my podcast. Same with my blog posts. And as I look back, both of our efforts had the same sort of message. Even your blog posts before I came along, you had this message. And as if I were to put one word on both of those, on all of it, it's ascension. And it's a word that's been popping up, I've seen in other cultural things, in the Gaia episodes we've been talking about, in some other fringe topics, but it's a very doctrinal topic, ascension. And
right.
And the way I see it is, my blog posts were always meant to just uplift and instruct and just elevate. And your stuff has done that. But when I think about love, the doctrine of divine or pure love, what better quality or characteristic is there to help us ascend, to uplift, become better, brighter people?
Right. Thanks for saying that. I agree. In fact, no one ascends until they are given the gift of charity. Mm-hmm. That is a huge part, if not the core emotion or characteristic of ascension. Mm-hmm. As I look into the heavens and I see the different degrees of glory within degrees of glory, the love that emanates increases as you go higher and higher into higher vibrations. And so I think that's exciting, because that lets me know that on a personal level, I have a lot of growth still, but that there's a lot of growth potential in each and every one of us. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. Even as we were doing the last podcast, Eric and I, it's like, I knew there would be another podcast on this topic, and I got off the podcast. Of course, those of you that watched it, you saw my phone battery was dying. If it hadn't, I probably would have gone on for another 10 minutes. So I guess you can be thankful that my phone was dying and cut that podcast kind of short and do another one. But the next day I was doing sessions with clients, and sure enough, some of the clients that I talked to, they heard a portion of the message, and that's what happens. We don't hear all of it all the time. And then the adversary heaped on them and twisted my words. And so I want to clarify some of what I meant in the Perfect Love podcast number 1. And we're gonna talk a little bit more today about what my understanding is when we are working to develop this quality and asking for this gift of perfect love. Mm-hmm. And what love is and what love isn't. So we talked a little bit about loving the Lord first, the first and great commandment, loving God first, and the second, like unto it, loving ourselves and loving our neighbors. And how when we love God first, that's the first step to then learning how to love ourselves, because He loves us so much. Well, when we put God first above all else and everyone else, and when I mean everyone else, I mean everyone else, including our spouses and our children. Now, that's a hard thing for some people. That does not mean putting a church or a religion above family.
Mm-hmm.
The order is God first. It never says put your church responsibilities first. There's a big difference between like doing a church calling and putting that before your family. Your family does come before your church calling, but the Lord comes before your family. Your relationship with the Lord comes first. When you put your relationship with the Lord first above all else and everything else, and you're in alignment with his will, and your will becomes his will, then the dominoes fall into place, the puzzle pieces fall into place, the chess pieces fall where they need to, and then your relationships are healthier. Your marriages are healthier, your relationships with your children and everybody in your circle becomes healthier, and those around you feel the lifting, feel the vibration of your energy body raise, and then you can help other people. When we are in a state of chaos, and we all have them at different times to different varying degrees because we are mortal, but when we're in chaotic energy, people around us feel the chaos, and either we attract more chaos, or those that are not in as much of a chaotic state don't want to be around us. And it can go both ways. It's a symbiotic relationship that we have in the universe. It goes for even those people we don't know well, our work associates, our schoolmates, our ward members, our community members, right? Whether it's on a conscious level or not, we have these symbiotic relationships, these interactive relationships, even through thought energy. We don't even have to say anything, and people can feel it around us. And we can feel it in other people. So I want you to think about the people in your life and how you feel when you are around them in close proximity. And then I want you to think, push your energy out, and I want you to think about the people you've met in your life, or that you're interacting with the most in your life, or that you have conversations with, or any kind of interaction. And I want you to think about how you feel when you interact with them, how they make you feel. Are they uplifting to you? Are you uplifting to them? And I would encourage you to basically analyze and take stock of your relationships and who it is in your life that is healthy for you, that's helping you either stay on a path towards becoming more Christ-like, staying on a path to help you raise your own vibration and become a better you, compared to those who are doing the opposite. Those who might be encouraging you to sin, those who might be encouraging you to do things that are not true to who you are, those who might be causing you conflict in your heart because your spirit wants to do one thing and they want you to do something else, or they are trying to pull you down, whether it's conscious or not, if they have that effect. This is very real on an energetic level. It affects us, whether we're able to push through difficult challenges, and where we turn for help. Are we first turning to God for guidance and inspiration and answers to our problems, or are we turning to men and women in our social circles? Are we first turning to our parents, or are we first turning to God? And I mean this of all ages. From teenagers, once you get into teenage years and young adult years, you need to start developing more of that relationship with the Lord, and even going to him for the advice that you need, because sometimes parents give bad advice. Young adulthood, once you're out on your own. And as adults, I have lots of clients still being negatively affected by their parents, who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s year old, still having negative impact on 30 and 40 and 50-year-old people, and some of them into their 60s, with parents that are 80 that are still abusing and mistreating them. And at what point in time are we going to say, enough is enough, I'm putting God first, and I don't really care, right, what men think. And when I say men, I mean men and women, any human being on the planet. I don't really care what they think. I care what God thinks. And if I'm okay with God, then I'm okay with what anybody says or does against me, because that doesn't affect my self-esteem. That doesn't affect my divine identity. That does not affect my personality to the same degree. Now, it does affect us, but we put it in a box. And I've had a lot of practice with this in my life, and especially in the last 5.5 years going public with my story. I want to encourage you to take a look. Those relationships that are negative, that are pulling you down. Now, I don't suggest you cut people off, but there are times when you need to distance yourself. Mm-hmm. And this is called setting boundaries. Mm-hmm. Cutting off is different than setting boundaries, and setting boundaries is different than putting walls up. There are cases where we do put walls up, and it is actually the healthier alternative to allowing people into our space. Mm-hmm. But setting a boundary is where you love yourself, you have self-respect, and you do not allow another human being on this side of the veil or the other side of the veil, including entities or unclean spirits, or even ancestors on the other side of the veil that you're giving access to. We have many, many people in our space on either side of the veil that do not seek our best interest or welfare, whether that's conscious or not. Some people do it subconsciously, and they don't even realize how damaging they are to other people. So setting a boundary is different than putting up a wall. Setting a boundary shows respect for you, yourself, and actually for the other person. When you set a boundary with them, you are teaching people how to treat you and to treat other people with respect.
It's really good.
I'm still working at it.
I might just add to that, just in scriptural support of what you're saying, if people are having a hard time with that, it is scriptural that when, I can't remember the reference right now, but the Savior in the New Testament somewhere said, I came not to, bring peace to a family, basically, but to come between a mother and a daughter, a father and a son, a husband and a spouse. I can't remember all the examples he used, but and what that means is, at some point we have to come to terms with what truth is and follow truth, even if that means our family won't support us in that. And I'm finding with these controversial subjects, and during this transition that we're in and the ascension that we're going through, there are those who don't want to go along with the ride, and it's creating odds between family members. And I'm finding in many cases, family members are actually the biggest detriment or the biggest hindrance to our progression at times. I mean, have you had thoughts along those lines?
Well, I think it goes both ways. I have family members who are absolutely so loving and so supportive and so kind. They may not agree with me. They may not even believe me, but they respect me. We respect each other. We have different views, but we're still close. We still talk. We still bond. We still have a loving, kind relationship built on respect for each other and for our agency. And then I have other family members, quite frankly, who have done absolutely the opposite, who have been gossiping, backstabbing, talking terrible about me, and many of them to my face or behind my back with other family members or with people in the community, or who knows, right, publicly online and all kinds of stuff. I've had the whole spectrum. And these family members that are doing this, the ironic thing is some of them think they're getting away with it, like they're two-faced to me, but they don't even know my gifts because I never told them. And I'm talking about aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, in the extended family, or sister, like, I'm not going to, anyway, siblings, I'll leave it at that, because that could be anywhere from in-laws, sister-in-laws, whatever, right? The whole gamut. And they don't realize my gifts. And also, it always gets back to the person eventually, right? And yes, it hurts, but it will not stop me from doing my mission. And I'm not going to talk ill of them, knowing their struggles, right, or knowing their allegiances and who and what they've been involved in. I will just say that if people knew, they might question the source. And what is most important to me is that I am good with God. I am thankful for those friends and family members who are true friends, and I've got many of them. And I have lost, quote unquote, many close friends in the last 5 years, friends that have been friends of mine for decades. that have decided that they just can't be my friend because of the choices I'm making to go public with my story. And I respect them for that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what they need in their life, if they need to separate themselves from me because we are taking different paths, I'm okay with that because I respect them and I respect their agency. And I think when we are easily offended and we are offended that somebody doesn't want to see things our way, then we need to also reevaluate where we are. It doesn't mean we have to change what we're doing. It doesn't mean we have to change what our truth or what our feelings are, our belief systems. But I think there always needs to be a level of respect in any kind of relationship. And when there is not that respect, then you can sever ties. And that's a healthy thing to do. And I don't mean entirely cut people off, although I will tell you that I have severed some relationships because they were so unhealthy for me that there was nothing good coming from it. And it was in my best interest, and I think in theirs, to distance myself to the point that I no longer have any contact and they have no access to me. They don't have my phone number. They don't have any kind of email information. They don't have anything where they could access me other than through thought energy or through other relationships that get back to me. And I will tell you that I am a much happier person having done that. Way happier. Like, there were people that have been hurting me my whole life. And when I finally got healthy enough that I said, I'm not going to allow this abuse in my life anymore, this so-called friend no longer serves a purpose for me in my life. There's nothing good coming from this relationship. Therefore, I am going to move on. And my respect for myself and gaining more self-confidence in who I am and my mission, and quite frankly, my relationship with the Lord, is what gave me the courage to allow that relationship. As what my daughter says, we've drifted. When she's got a friend that they used to be close and they're not as close, she'll say we're drifting. And we don't have to just be abrupt. I mean, sometimes it takes that. Sometimes people just drift apart, and that's not a bad thing. It just means maybe whatever purpose they played in your life earlier is no longer there anymore.
Yeah. Julie, I'd like to raise a question. I'm thinking about the Savior, and I'm thinking about the way we're often taught of him and how sometimes that's incorrect a little bit. So for example, I think we might have a bit of a mindset that he just loved everyone and he would do anything for anybody at any time, that he didn't have boundaries, that he was kind of a pushover, just always loving. Can you talk about how that can be a false belief?
It is a false belief. I'll tell you what I know and remember about the Savior. The reason he got crucified is because he made enemies in speaking truth. One of the reasons he got crucified is because he said things to Sadducees and Pharisees that didn't sit well with those Pharisees and Sadducees. And he was right in doing and saying what he did. One of the reasons he got crucified is because he had family members that betrayed him. One of the reasons he got crucified is because he took a stand and he had self-respect for himself and for his mission and for all of mankind and humanity. And because when he saw someone who was being mistreated, he stood up for that person. When he saw a false belief that was being taught, he corrected the false belief. When he saw someone being abused, he took action and he didn't stand by and watch the abuse. Those who are true leaders, those who want to make a difference on this planet, those who have self-respect for themselves and for other people, do not cower, no matter what the cost is. And Christ is the ultimate example in that. Where we have false beliefs being taught about him is like Eric said, where, he just allowed people to walk on him, basically, or he just took their abuse, or he let them be mean, and he turned the other cheek. He did turn the other cheek, and he taught that. But what exactly does that mean? Because there's more that was included in those scriptures that were taken out of the Bible that we don't have. That doctrine is incomplete with how it's being taught. It is incomplete with how it's been recorded. So, are my text messages showing up on my screen?
No.
Okay.
You're
I have
safe.
someone texting. Okay, I have someone texting me right now as a client, and I'm like, oh no, the whole world's gonna see what my client said.
No, it's good on our side. You're fine. You can continue.
So when we set boundaries, healthy boundaries with people, we are showing love. Christ did not and does not and never has once. I don't know how he was in his probations prior to becoming a Christ in regards to the things he had to work out in his relationships. What I know is that he was very human, and he had to learn these things too before he was chosen and selected to become the Christ. And the nature of being a Christ and the role that he plays, he took upon himself the sins of all mankind. But that does not mean that he himself acted in that manner. Some people have tried to say that Christ, in order for him to understand everyone, he must have committed murder or adultery or betrayed. That's a lie. He never did. That is absolutely a false lie, a false teaching, and a lie that Lucifer's tried to say, because Lucifer did those things, and that was one of his platforms in trying to become chosen as the Christ. It's because he had done those things, and he tried to appeal to people. He still does, in saying, how can Christ really understand what it's like to be a murderer? He's never done that, but I have, and I totally know what it's like to murder, right? So there are these lies that are told by the adversary about what it means to be Christ-like. What it means to be Christ-like is that we love God first, we give glory to God because we trust God, and in so doing, our glory then increases because we respect ourselves and everyone else. And what does it mean to be good and evil? To be good means we respect agency, and to be evil means we don't. That's part of the definition of good and evil. When we love other people more than we love ourselves, that does not mean we let them walk on us. We cannot truly love other people if we are letting them treat us like crap. Now, some people are just going to treat us like crap, and we have to put up with abuse sometimes in relationships because we weigh the cost-benefit analysis, right? If you're in a marriage where someone's not treating you with the respect that you know you should be treated, but you're in a situation where the Lord tells you made covenants, and this is your eternal companion, and you need to work together to help each other out so that you can get to the next level of progression, that's far different than a situation where somebody's taking a beating. The Lord does not want you taking a beating. He does not want you abused. I think that's important. I've had clients that were raised in very abusive homes, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually abused, satanic ritual abuse, and the adversary has tried to tell them that they weren't worth it, that all kinds of stuff, or even that God wanted them punished, and that they must have made some kind of awful choice in premortality, or they never would have been born in this circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
I think in most of those cases, when I've seen those clients and I've taken a look at their premortality, actually the opposite is true. They had such a big heart and they wanted to help, and there was so much dark energy in that family line that they made covenants to come to try to help other people ascend and to bring light, knowing at all costs what was on the line and that it would cause damage and hurt, but trusting the atonement that they could be healed. So there are so many factors involved when we're looking at relationships. And whether it's a marriage relationship or a parent to child or child to parent or siblings or friends or whatever, this energy follows us, and we're born into these family circumstances out of our control once once we're here, right? I mean, I've got clients who are prostituted their whole lives growing up and awful, atrocious things. And you can't imagine that a parent would treat a child that way. But it happens. So how do we make sense of this? How do we ever have any kind of normal marriage or normal relationship with human beings when the people who are supposed to love and protect us the most are the ones that we're doing the most damage? That's when we rely on the Lord. That's when we develop our relationship with Him. That's when we ask Him, who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? What is my divine role? What did I agree to? Why am I suffering like this? What would you have me do? And every time I have been abused in any form or fashion by mortals or those on the other side of the veil in an adversarial attack, the Lord has taught me you ask two questions. Because we want to ask why. And asking why can be fine, right? We want to have a understanding of the reason for our suffering and find purpose in our suffering. But I was taught this years ago. You ask, what am I to learn and how am I to serve? And when you ask those questions, you will begin to have the veil open unto you and greater purpose for your suffering. And in so doing, as you come to understand more of your divine worth and your role in the family, you will come to understand the purpose for your suffering, which will give you strength to endure that difficulty. And in response to that, your heart energy will improve. It will get healthier and you will get stronger. Your heart will expand. Your love will increase for God and for all of those who are part of this family in all of eternity, including those who mistreat you. And as you have an increase in love for those who mistreat you, the symbiotic relationship is that you step out of the abusive relationship, which helps them and helps you and breaks the patterns of abuse.
It's good advice, Julie. As you've been talking, my mind and my heart has turned to a lot of women who I believe are oppressed in this very patriarchal culture and world that we live in. And I see it more and more. I see how women, in many cases in relationships, don't see themselves as being abused. It's just the way it is. And their husbands speak very unkindly to them and are cruel. And it's just how life is. And they just shut up and put up. And there you go. And so my heart goes out to them. Do you have a message for them? I mean, first of all, to help them recognize that they are being abused, and then how to handle that abuse in love, the way Christ would?
I do. I wish there was more I could say on it today. I can say a few things, and then I will, I'm going to give my promise to those out there, whether they are men or women. I do see a podcast coming in the future that is more direct, more frank, and more open, and where I can share more of what I have learned in my probations. And I put that with an S, probations, because I've had several. And I have memory of being abused and mistreated by lots of men in lots of probations. And I'll give my promise that at some time in the future, when I am in a position to do that, where I can share more openly, the time is not right, but at some point in time, I will do a podcast with Eric, and I will disclose some more of those memories and some of the coping strategies that I learned in those probations that I have brought into this probation, and things I've learned in this probation regarding my relationships with family and friends, and how to navigate that energy, if you will. No two circumstances are the same, but there are different coping strategies. There's different healing methods. There's different, I don't want to say tactics, but quite frankly, methods to deal with that. And I would say this, that if you are in an abusive relationship of any kind, especially when it's escalated to anything physical or sexual, if a man, and I would say even a woman, because I have clients who are men who have been or abused by their wives or girlfriends, because it goes both ways. It usually manifests with men towards women more commonly, but I think some of that is because the men that are abused have a different level of shame energy, because society would treat them like they're wussy if they were to expose that a woman is being abusive. And so they're in a different kind of emotional trap, because it's hard enough anytime anybody's in an abuse situation, a woman towards a man, but that's more common, and there's more support in society for, they have women in children's shelters. Very difficult for a man in our world to get help and to feel comfortable talking to anyone when they know that their spouse or girlfriend or parent is being abusive to them. Women have and do mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and sexually abuse, and it goes the other way, of course, with the men. And when that happens, when it has escalated, because the abuse cycle goes from emotional to verbal to physical to sexual, that's generally the pattern. And so if a man is calling you names, if he is in any way physically holding you down, even sometimes, quote, joking, but like you're saying to him, get off me, I don't like this, don't touch me like that. He's not respecting your boundaries. He's not respecting your body. He's not respecting your personal space. Very often, if you don't put a stop to that, it can escalate. And when a man gets to a situation where either his wife or he on the other side, because a lot of time abusive people will be married to each other, and it's this back and forth tug of war too. There's all kinds of different abuse patterns that manifest on the planet. And when that happens, then if like it's very common, you'll have a wife who is somehow being abused by the husband, and then they have kids, and then that abuse goes to the kids too. And so women will stay in those relationships for years until it gets so bad that they're more hurt about the damage being done to their kids even than they are themselves, because the mother bear kicks in. And so there are times when you just need to say, I'm done with this relationship. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to put up with this. And that can be scary, right? And there's all kinds of guilt and shame and everything that comes with it. So those are personal decisions that have to be made. And no one likes to get divorced. It's never good. But I will say that there are circumstances where that's absolutely what needs to happen, that it's the less damaging alternative. And anytime there is sexual abuse involved or physical abuse involved, I would encourage you to separate yourself, because it is not okay for anyone to physically or sexually abuse anybody else. And those patterns escalate. I've got clients who, had their life threatened and all kinds of stuff by the abuser. And also you'll see the pattern where a parent abused a child, and then that child grows up and they marry somebody that abuses them, and then their husband or wife abuses the children. And somebody has to put a stop to the generational abuse patterns that have been passed down. Quite frankly, where we are on the planet right now, there are abuse patterns in every single family line that I see, because we've been on the planet this long. Lucifer's had his hand. The energy's been manipulated. We've got so many obstacles and so much dark energy coming at us. And so if you are in an abusive situation, I want you to hear me when I say that I do understand. I do. And at some point in time, I will do a podcast in the future where we go into some more detail on why I understand and some of the memories that I have of what I've experienced, so that you know that when we try to help you clear this energy, I am coming from it from a standpoint of, while I'm not exactly in your shoes and no two people can fully understand what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes, the Lord does, and he has sent me as his messenger, a mortal human being, so that you have somebody that can understand your pain. I feel strongly about abuse and cutting off and destroying these abuse patterns. some of which were brought from premortality as a result of the war in heaven. Some of this abuse energy that's been brought, the emotion that we feel, the unworthy, the conflict, the shame, the guilt, the betrayal, the heartache, the forlorn, the sadness, the sorrow, all these emotions that we felt as a result of being in the war in heaven. So we have premortality, prenatal, natal, preconception, conception, generational, inherited, and life energies. Eric, I'm not seeing your video.
I lost you for a minute. Your video, your audio is going to continue, but we'll figure that out later.
Okay.
You can continue.
So, I just want you guys to know that I feel your pain. That I know the Lord feels your pain, and that if you turn to Him, in no matter your circumstances, whatever you're struggling with right now, whatever you've been through, whatever you're going through now, or whatever you will go through, that if you turn to Him, He can heal your heart. No one else can do it. You can have other people on the planet that will encourage you and help you, that will succor you in time of need, that will support you or whatever in your relationships. But ultimately, Elohim, that is who understands. God the Father and Jesus Christ understand. So talk to them. They are the ones that teach you what you need in your life and in the eternities. They can help heal your heart, and they will help you become the person that you were destined to become. I love that we have this beautiful plan. It's a hard plan, but it's a perfect plan. And what I mean by perfect is whole and complete. It doesn't just accommodate for everyone. It allows for agency, and there is a place for everyone in the kingdom. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of setting healthy boundaries. If you haven't done it already, if you haven't listened to the other podcasts on cutting negative energy, every day I encourage you to basically in your mind say that you cut any and all negative cords, strings, ropes, chains, other attachments, clean the tapestry, clean the threads, cut the negative strings, ropes, threads, whatever. Some of you are visual and will see these energy cords. They can be the tiniest thread, or they can be a big thick rope, and they will literally wrap around your neck or your arms, all different parts of your energy bodies to hold you back. If you put that into practice and do that every day and redirect that energy to the Savior, you will feel like you have lost weight. You will feel lighter. Those individuals who are trying to hold you back, whether consciously or subconsciously, will be put in their place, and you will be set free. That's the first step to becoming a healthier person.
Okay.
You got anything to add?
Well, I think you've covered it really well. I guess some thoughts that I've had is in this process of ascending, it's important for us to be forgiving to each other. I've noticed, even as we do these podcasts, it's kind of funny what kinds of things people say. I don't know what compels someone to tell you that you look weird on video and it's distracting to the message. And it's like, anyway, that's just one example of just how people can be insensitive and judgmental. And I wish we could just do away with these things. As we ascend, we need to be forgiving and loving and just stop judging and just let go of all this stupid crap, I love nature, and one thing I observe in nature and animals, and especially birds, I noticed this when I was a young guy, how birds, a whole flock will just be flying and just change direction suddenly. They're so unified. And there's this
fish,
right, and fish and other animals. It's like all the animals on the earth have figured out how to act as one, but we're just struggling to be unified and in love with each other and just forgiving and just, try to elevate and lift. But I know we're going to get there. And as bleak as this world is and the circumstances seem right now, I know we'll get there. I don't really know how, but I know the process of ascension has begun, and it's taking place in individual hearts one by one. People who get the vision, whose eyes are opening, and they see that there's a better way of living, and it's not judgmental. It's kind. It's open and understanding. Right. And anyway, so it's a message I believe in, and so I want to encourage us all to do that.
Thank you. Yeah. Eric's been having more and more opportunity right along with me to receive both kind messages and very unkind messages. And I just thank you, Eric. He takes the media emails and filters them so that I don't have to deal with that energy that comes in. And so thank you to those of you that give positive, kind feedback. And for those that choose not to, well, I hope you find something better to do with your time. Because what a waste, right? What a waste to spread any negative energy on this planet. I don't understand it other than to think that there are some pretty miserable people out there. And for those people, I just send my love and hope that you will find greater peace and happiness in your heart so that you can focus on something positive and kind, because it really is a waste of our time and energy to be negative on, on anything. Well, thanks you guys for listening. We appreciate all of you. We hope that you have a great weekend. Today's Friday. I don't know when this will go out. Maybe by the time it goes out, the weekend will be over. We'll see. But in the meantime, I hope everybody is looking forward to a great Thanksgiving. I know that the holidays are a hard time for many, many people. They are a very difficult time for me. Right about Halloween time till, February, it increasingly gets more difficult. I often deal with the holiday blues mixed in with the holiday joys. A lot of trauma has happened during the holidays with my family, and some friendships and grieving and things like that, combined with, this is going to sound weird to people maybe, but I love Christmas. It's both my favorite holiday. Well, I love Easter, but Christmas is my favorite holiday, and it's also my hardest holiday because everyone is constantly talking about Christ, which is wonderful, but it makes me terribly, terribly homesick. It's all I can do to get through the month of December. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for your positive insights and comments, and for being kind to one another during this holiday season. I hope that we can take more of this kindness and spread it throughout the rest of the year. And just know that we have good things coming to this planet. So as we go into Thanksgiving, those of you that are struggling, know that you've got somebody out there that understands. The best that I can, I'll be thinking of you and sending you angels and prayers so that you can have a good holiday season. I will be going out of town again next week, so I'm not sure when we'll do the next podcast, but sometime in December we'll do a podcast. We still have Multiple Creations 3 coming along at some point in time. So, thanks for listening, guys.
Sounds good. Thanks, you guys.